Transformers. Fall of Cybertron. Hard difficulty, no upgrades, no perks, and no need for disguises. We are playing as the mighty Optimus Prime. He looks a little beefy in this game. I don't remember him looking like this. He looked a little bit more retro when I was a kid. But he's kicking ass, and my driving skills are, of course, top tier. Hence why I will introduce you to every wall that you do not need to hit on this thoroughfare here to get us to the next part of the game. Big shout out to everybody watching this project and as excited for it as I was. It's nice to see people digging something that came out of nowhere, and there seems to be a lot of fondness for this series, which I think is really cool because it does deserve it. And there's even been some people that have pointed out, and rightly so, that I wasn't interested in this series back in the day when people asked me, and it was true. But it is no longer true because this one really did change my mind and I was in a much better space when I played it, so that's awesome. But the thing I like about these driving sequences is you can choose to take these slower. You can choose to do kind of what you want here and shoot some people and run around as the robot, or you can just straight up come into the car mode and come down here and get on with it. And there's a nice sense of pacing and flow to these levels where you always seem to be doing the next thing that's slightly different to the thing you were just doing, but it doesn't deviate too much so that it doesn't feel like you're playing as a transformer. And that kind of cohesion now is kind of missing in a lot of games because they dwell on moments for far too long, the pacing's all over the place, and they release a game called Alan Wake 2 where you play as some random black woman from the FBI. It's just absolute madness. But this is Optimus, and we're using this cannon that he starts with. And for the people who want to know a little bit behind the scenes here, now, this is an interesting fight, this, because there's a lot of people in cover and you die real quick in this game. When you take your hood off, you cannot see my HP bar. You can't see my ammo, you can't see things like that, you can't see my reticle. So if you watch the character, whenever you see that shield go back around Optimus, that's me regenning the damage that I've taken. And if you see any moments of calm when I'm not fighting and that blue sphere comes, look, it just did it then. When you see that, that's me getting back to full HP. Because before that, I was injured. And you can tell when you're about to die without the hood, which is handy, so you shouldn't have any problems with that. But the big one, of course, is that you can't see where your reticle is. Luckily for me, I'm playing on PC, and I'm using a piece of software which you can't see, which gives me a dot in the middle of my screen. So even though I technically have my crosshair off, I know exactly where my gun's going to fire. But when I first played through this game, I did so on normal with the same restrictions to see how fun this was going to be, and it was super fun. It was really fun. I was able to be super aggressive, jump into the middle of a bunch of Decepticons and then flick between them and make some really exciting gameplay. I apologise, my throat is fucking failing right now. But then when I came to the hard difficulty, they have a lot more HP and it's much more difficult to do that. And this is one of the first encounters where you're going to feel the difficulty increase. Because when you're on this turret, you cannot defend yourself. And you die really quick when that left-hand spawn turns up and they start shooting. So you'll notice I'm going to put some fire on these people, but as soon as I start getting tagged, I'm going to get off the turret. And it's not because I don't want to. The turret is really fun. It's just you cannot do anything once you start taking damage and you just get annihilated. So when that explosion happens, you see I just got my shield back. There's a bunch more guys in front here. I'm going to stay for as long as I am confident, and then the moment where it feels like I'm too exposed, I'm going to back away. And I did die on this moment, but it seems like in the recording I managed to stay on top of him a bit better than I did before, so maybe I won't get off the turret. This is like that dude that commentated my walkthrough all those years ago when he stole it and he didn't know what I was doing. So he kept saying in the commentary, I'm going to go over here to the left, and then I went over to the right and he's like, oh yeah, I actually remember there was something on the right. And like, yeah, you did, you fucking asshole. You stole my work. But right now, I dropped off, I came back, and there's just the last few enemies, and Optimus is talking and we're going to transition to the next fight. So this game is a little bit earlier than the conventional everybody uses cover now games, and because it's a sequel to another game that did it the same way, this game does not have traditional cover. You're just going to use your body and make sure that you're not in the way of the bullets, and it's a good system if you enjoy it. There are of course some downsides to this particular method. You'll spend a lot of time doing what I'm doing right now, which is kind of clipping around the right hand side of an object, favouring your right shoulder, but this is something that all third person shooters have done. And in this game, I'm not entirely certain if you can swap shoulder, which is unfortunate, but it never got in the way of having a good time or my success, which is really respectable. And we're now pushing into another one of the bigger areas here. And the arenas in this game are quite creative. They've got some verticality, they've got some width, they've got different variables happening between like weapons you can pick up, little caches for you to grab, explosives and the like. And then of course one of the coolest things about this game is at any moment you can turn into a vehicle. And I know, you know, Transformers, robots in disguise and all that, but it really does add some depth to it. But right here, you'll notice my hood is on. And whenever the game does a cutscene and it moves forward to the next part of the game, it resets the mod and you have to press a hotkey to make it go away. So there will be moments where you can see the game as you normally would, and just then I noticed and I turned it off. So you can see there what is happening behind the, shall we say, the hood of the car. But this weapon is a triple burst firing kind of range weapon. It's meant to be some kind of marksman gun. And for an accurate gun, it's pretty inaccurate. It's highly damaging and it's very good. One of the things that this game does really well is almost all of the guns are worth using, and almost all of them have a situation where you can feel their power. And I like a game that makes a suite of weapons that I want to use, because when you play those games where there's only 2 or 3 things worth using, it's not necessarily that it gets stagnant too quickly, because they might have really good mechanics, but it makes you wonder, doesn't it, how they can get so many right and so many wrong at the same time. And I suppose there's always the nature of a power hierarchy. There's always got to be something at the bottom and something at the top, but you want everything to be as close to the top as you can, especially in a single-player game. Because let's face it, we're fighting the computer. The computer is perfect, it can do things that humans cannot do. Why not give us a little advantage to fight back against such, you know, overwhelming odds? And you might notice that I'm engaging at range a lot in this game. Range is your best friend on this difficulty, because the closer you get to people, the faster they can stack damage. And if you bump into the wrong enemies, you're going to notice just how highly damaging they can be. Most enemies will be okay. The only time you'll die is if you overextend. But if you bump into the shotgun fellas, then you will die. And they always come in twos, so you want to be very cognizant of that. The bigger Decepticons that you'll take on, the kind of ground slamming men, they seem quite intimidating because they're very tanky and they're bulky, but their AI is quite fair and their pattern is really exploitable. But that right there I think is HP, the cubes. I'm sure there's some lore ramifications to all of this that people know, but I have no idea. I'm trying to think what was the last actual Transformers cartoon I watched. Because it was the originals, or at least the older ones. And I think this game does give you access to some of those old skins if you want them, but I thought for the purposes of, you know, adhering to what they're trying to do here in the narrative, I'll wear the correct skin. A couple guys on that balcony there. And I don't know if I talked in the first video, but the reason why I liked this game as much as I did is not only that they made a fun video game that's got lots of creative stuff going on, considering it's just, you know, third-person shoot, destroy Transformers, but I liked it because the mouse felt really good. And I need to put a bit of a caveat there on that, because the mouse feels good when you are hip firing, but it doesn't feel as good when you ADS. And sadly, you are more accurate when you ADS than when you hip fire, so I don't often get to feel the really good mouse. And then when you're in the car, the sensitivity's weird again. And then when you use any of the turrets or anything, certain turrets have got different zooms and different sensitivities, and it all gets a bit confusing. But anything from the hip feels really nice. And if there was a way in the future to kind of mod the game and fix some of these features, make it so that all the aim felt like the hip, just native mouse, really smooth, really connected, then it would be phenomenal. And I did try to get the War for Cybertron to see how that game was, because I am curious to play it, but the version that I got was not running correctly on my PC, so I couldn't play it. And then the other ones, I tried a couple of the other ones, and they were some of the older ones, I think made by different dev teams, and they were kind of rough. They looked cool, but they didn't feel very good, and the mouse was just horrendous. And sadly, when the mouse is bad, it just demoralizes any will to play. But here is the big fella, big old purple dude, just wrecking everybody. And as is the case of many enemies in games, this is a monster that's weakness is on his back. And this is another creature that they do send multiples of. The only thing to really bear in mind with this guy is that he slams the ground and he has a big AoE. So if you don't know his pattern and you let him get a bit too close on some of that stuff, it won't touch you, but it'll touch you. So be real careful. But the main gist is he dashes towards you, shoot him in the back. Once he recovers, he's probably either going to jump towards you like this, and you can just go towards where he was and it misses every time. And then just whack him as much as you can. And if you can pick up a shotgun or pick up anything bigger here, you can kill him quicker, but I wanted to show you that you don't need any specific weapon to fight these monsters. You can kind of just manipulate the fact that they're really not that smart. And I think this is the shotgun right here, or at least the sniper rifle, so it does a lot of damage. And this room has jump pads too, which is cool. They're a little bit restricted, but they're okay. I don't know what that guy's doing. Oh, here we go, he's shooting this man and pulling aggro. So as you may have noticed, you do have some friendlies with you, and they can be useful. But for the most, you won't really notice them. Some of the matches later on, you're just going to be overwhelmed by enemies that it's just going to feel like you on your own the whole time. And thankfully, you are capable enough to shut that down. But one of the things I did struggle with in this game is understanding who was friendly and who was not. And I know that probably is sacrosanct to people who know the series. But they do look very similar. You know, it's like the one time you think they're on your team, they're not, they kill you. So you want to always just treat everybody as if they're hostile. But here he comes again. Using the vehicle here is probably a really good idea too. But I've got a shotgun. The scatter blast is really strong. And then that's the end of that sequence, and then we move on to the next one. This one has an interesting creature on the other side there. And then it has a couple of people who are going to be sniping. And now we get to use the laser pointer. So one of the things I really like about this game is that every character and every level you play has a kind of gimmick that's built into the gameplay. And when you play as Optimus, you get to do what I did there. You get this constantly on cooldown technique to just hit something with an orbital strike. And usually in games, when you do these moments, you have to pick up some stupid weapon. It's very slow, it aims really awkwardly, and then you shoot one thing with it and they take it off you in a cutscene. In this game, when you play as Optimus, you can do this. Once they give it you, you can just do it at will, like I'm doing right now. And it's a button that you press, and it's a laser from your body, and it's really easy to control, and down comes the airstrike. And you can avoid using it if you want to, or you can use it. It's entirely up to you, but it's really handy. And it's really fun. And then the best thing is once you see that, wow, I've got access to this laser, I wonder what the other guys are going to have. When you start playing as the other people, you see what they do, and all of them are quite different in their own unique way. And it's a small detail, but it's worth it. And is it inspired by the Hammer of Dawn from Gears? Potentially, but it's still really cool. Oh, is this Shotgun Men? Yeah, this is Shotgun Men. So these dudes, these men, you do not want to give them anything. These guys are about to introduce you to what damage is in this. Oh, well, that's one of the problems when you pull the FOV out. So I'm playing on a slightly elevated FOV, as you might have noticed. But if you go too far backwards towards a wall, you will see through the wall and you cannot see your character, so you've got to be really careful. But that looked like an easy fight just then. Those shotgun men, if they get anywhere near you and they start landing shots, you go down faster than almost anything else, so be very careful. It's not quite Gears. You know, Nashers in Gears put you down in one shot on Insane if they did it right. Those guys can't do that, but they come in twos and they shoot faster. But call in the airstrike and then start sniping some of these guys. And we're going to be moving through a zone here that has the first difficult checkpoint. So usually, in the fights that you've just witnessed, if you were to die, you probably would have got a checkpoint midway through. But I didn't die, so I can't really tell you how that worked. However, here I did. And I died right at the end of this. And then I had to do all of this again. So that's why I'm playing a little bit more timid here. Because there's a lot of enemies on this sequence, and it's quite a lengthy checkpoint. But once you strip everybody down, and you feel like it's safe to move, push forward. The challenges you'll face is that the topography is quite elevated, and in any game like this, if an enemy can see you and they can shoot you from an awkward angle, it forces you into other people's line of sights, and it means that you are never truly safe. On the one hand, I think this is good design because it means that it's always challenging, and it makes you move, it makes you consider where you are, your positioning, and it takes a lot more brain power to navigate the problems that they're presenting than it would if you could just sit in one piece of cover and shoot out of it and feel completely safe. So I definitely like it, but like anything else, I'm not a big fan of a checkpoint that makes you do a little bit more gameplay than I would enjoy, and it does so happen that I don't enjoy doing more than like 2 dudes. And it must come from the PC days of using the quick save. I love being able to just segment fights. It just feels a lot more fun for my brain. And if I could change my brain, I would. Because I don't want to be annoyed by, you know, doing 5 minutes instead of 2. But I am. There's no two words about it. Here we go. Pushing in here, getting a bit more aggressive. At this range, your shield will be stripped very quickly. But you have mobility, you have real aim, you have good guns, you have all the tools you need. And if you start getting into trouble and you don't have any cover, just turn into the car. The car stands a better chance, and then we have the vehicle coming in here, which I'm going to try and hit with a laser. When I did this on my first playthrough, this is the moment when I kind of realised I wanted to cover this game. Because there's nothing I enjoy more than attacking a troop carrier before it lets the troops off. It's that Titanfall, it's that Halo thing, there's so many games that have done this really well, and I adore it. Dynamic spawns. Oh, here comes shotgun men. Be very careful of these guys. And this man will run too. Did you see him? He's jogging. And you won't notice me run away too often, but with this enemy, I'm going to run away and I turn into the car and I'm just like, nope, not today, coach. And how the game works, you can see a little bit better here, is you have a shield and then you have your HP bar. And your shield regenerates. I don't think your HP does. Your HP, you have to grab those cubes. So if you can protect your shield at all times, you stand the best chance. And feasibly, if you were to play lame enough and really patient, you could probably do no damage in this game. Because you would only take damage on your shield and your HP would be fine. But I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound fun. And I'm all for doing, you know, some cool challenges, but they have to be fun. I was thinking about that the other day. Like, something like Quantum Break. I've been playing Quantum Break on stream. Because it's a cool game that's got some interesting things going on for it, even though it's not my favourite Remedy game. But I was thinking, what if you did like hard mode, pistol only, no powers? That would definitely be more difficult. But then replaying that game and kind of testing that out, it's not very fun. Because the main component of shooting in that game doesn't feel too great, and they constantly take the good pistols off you. So you're running around with the Glock, and the Glock doesn't feel satisfying at all. It's too much spread, too much spray. And it's frustrating. You have to tap fire, and I don't play fucking action games to tap fire, dude. You know, this is not Beirut. It's just silly. But this is interesting, the arc fueling station. There are several sequences in this game where you have to protect something and its HP bar will be on the screen. These moments can go bad really quickly. If you do not get rid of the tanks and you don't get rid of the threats in time, you will fail. I failed this, and I didn't even know you could on the previous difficulty, so be very careful here. And that's the thing, isn't it? This game came out, what was it, late 2000s? Like 2010, something around there, maybe a bit later. I'm sure some of you guys will correct me. But it came out at that time where games were still kind of mean. There was still that inherited cruelty that they had where you would lose and you would get your ass beat. And of course, they're not as mean as they were in, say, 2005 or early 2000s, but they've got those claws, they've got those vestigial limbs, and they're still using them. And I miss that, I do. I get really excited when I play a game that kills me nowadays, because none of them do. And especially when it's a good game and a fun game, I miss gameplay. I miss the danger of having to perform, you know? Like, there really is no need for walkthroughs on YouTube at all. They don't exist anymore. Because games are so brain dead, how could you need them? And it makes somebody like me redundant because it's one of the things that I did very well. And it's forced me to change my content and make different things, and that's why now they're a lot more edited. But every so often you get a gem like this that reminds you, you do have a purpose.